Chair, and welcome to everybody. I want to just come back on the 10% increases of the Executive Board. I think probably to phase it as best I can in relation to the response or the reaction from the public that it was insult on top of injury. But we sat here at multiple Oireachtas hearings, multiple committee hearings, and not once was it mentioned. Nobody on the board, and there are many that are here today again, not once was it mentioned. Bad enough that the Minister wasn't made aware of it. I mean, do you accept at this stage that, you know, when it comes to transparency and accountability and regaining trust of the public, that was your first failure?
Well, Deputy, I can't say it was my first failure.
No, not necessarily, but the failure of the board in itself in giving the information, bearing in mind that you're looking for extra funding, constantly saying you're in a dire financial state, that they wouldn't even mention the fact that, and you're talking about, say, the former Director General went from 306 to 316. She was hardly waiting on the extra 10,000, but she got it nonetheless. And then a worker in admin or clerical on 24,000 got just 3% in January. Can you understand how sickened the public are with that?
Deputy, I can understand it because I'm sickened myself. I've committed to total transparency around the pay of the leadership team under my leadership, and that's what you and the other deputies and the House of the Oireachtas and the audiences deserve, and that's what I will deliver, and there will be absolute transparency. And I don't understand why, you know, as with a number of things, I do not understand why this was not conveyed to the department. I mean, I've had a number of meetings with officials and with the Minister, and I think we have a good and open and transparent relationship, and I put a lot of things on the table there, everything I can, and I think any other members of the leadership team here will confirm that this has been the message from me, and it's the message from them, which is we are going to be operating in a totally transparent way, and that sort of thing won't happen again. And I totally understand it, and I was sickened myself, so I share that view.
Okay. Do you accept that RTE has lost the confidence of the public to the tune of 21 million by year end in licence fee renewals? Do you accept that you're on the verge of bankruptcy, that you're, you know, could very easily go bust, that you're in a perilous financial situation? And yet, when you responded earlier to the 10%, you had said, to be fair to the Executive Board, that they had taken a pay cut. Now, that to me doesn't show new broom leadership. I mean, you're on the verge of bankruptcy. You've lost total confidence of the public to the tune of 21 million in funding through licence fees. And yet there's nothing going to be done about executives on scandalous salaries helping themselves to a 10% increase, and all the while RTE crying poverty. And you had said earlier about freeze on recruitment, all that sort of thing. That's the kind of lavish expenditure where people are paid salaries beyond most people's imagination even, and yet there's nothing to be done about it.
No, I don't accept many of your premises, Deputy. We're not on the verge of bankruptcy. I made that crystal clear. We are having to manage our cash extremely carefully, but we're not on the verge of bankruptcy, and I wouldn't be able to run the organisation under my statutory responsibilities if I thought we were, and we're not. I would also say that we have lost 21 million in licence fee payments, or are projected to by the end of the year. It's very disappointing. I'm doing everything I can.
Would you say you're in a perilous financial situation?
We are in an extremely challenging financial situation. We are. Crystal clear about that.
That's what I said.
Well, no, you said we were facing bankruptcy. It's a difference.
If it continues in the spiral that it's going on and don't restore, it could well be a possibility.
Well, we don't know what level of licence fees are going to be, and we don't know what's going to happen about funding, which is why we're in proper measured negotiations about it.
Okay. I want to move on just to the, it was part of the documents that you furnished us at JOC 09. It was in relation to allowances. And there are over 4 million paid in allowances, and some of them are all perfectly understandable: shift allowance, call-out allowance, etc. But there was one that was under the category personal, and 46 people availed of an allowance of just short of €500,000 was the total in those allowances. Now, what it said, the category of payments made to individuals include allowances related to or being on air, for example. Are people not already paid for being on air?
Yes, I have to say the issue of allowances is something that we are dealing with. We need to deal with it. There are far too many allowances in RTE, and can I just say, on car allowances, I think I've said this previously.
I'm sorry, I will come to that. That is part of it. But just in relation to part of those personal allowances are paid to people who are on air, but they're already been paid for being on air. So what are they?
Well, I could bring in our Director of HR, if that's all right, to give you more detail. But as far as I understand it, that category would be for, this is part of the overall pay package for individuals. So they get a pay and they get an allowance for an on-air presenter allowance, for example, which means they get it while they're presenting, and if they go back from presenting, then they no longer get it. So it gives us a degree of flexibility.
But they're already paid for presenting, aren't they? So this is an allowance on top of the salary that
no, so sometimes, for example, there'll be a reporter or correspondent who will be asked to present on air, and rather than give them an overall pay rise, which we then can't get back if they're no longer on air, they may receive an allowance, which means they get that while they're presenting on air, but if they go back to being a reporter, they go back to earning as a reporter. So
would that apply to all that case that you specified there, would that apply to all 46 in receipt of that?
I don't know the detail of all 46. Ema might know a little bit more about that.
I have a couple of other questions.
Sorry, we can give you more detail. Sorry, Deputy. I'd like to give you the detail, but
no, I want
we can write you with the detail.
But I'll just give the other questions in relation to that as well. So we definitely need more detail on the breakdown of those 46. Is it somebody just covering, or are there people that are already paid for being on air?
We can give you as much detail as we can.
Allowance? And just, do you have a breakdown on how many are in receipt of multiple allowances? I'm sure that that's there somewhere.
We can get that. I'm not sure it's in the paperwork. I haven't seen it, but
and just in relation to the car allowance that you referenced there, Mr. Backhurst, is there any one of the 61 people in receipt of the car allowance that actually have no driving licence? Is there anybody at all?
There could well be, Deputy, and this is why I said this when I was in the first week when I was asked about it. There is not. I don't know why they're called car allowances. Frankly, it dates back to the 1980s. They are management allowances. That's what they should be called, in my view, or they should be part of salaries that we declare. Full stop. You don't have to have a car and you don't have to have a driving licence to get a so-called car allowance, and I don't understand why they're called car allowances, and it's something we'll deal with when we review all allowances, which we will do.
But do we not have that information, given that we're coming here today?
Well, we didn't go around all of them and ask if they have a driving licence, no.
Right, so you just give it, there's a car allowance, doesn't matter if you don't drive.
No, I haven't given the car allowances.
No, I'm not saying yourself, but the practice has been...
The practice has been built up over 40 years of people getting car allowances. It explicitly says, as it does in my contract, you do not have to spend this on a car. You can spend it if you want to on a car, which is why they should not be called that. Yeah.
And of the 61, how many are executives or board members or management? For example, are there any people on the lowest 50? Are there any of those, do we know, in receipt of a car allowance, those on the 24 to...
I think we gave
30,000 odd salaries.
Yeah, Ema, have you got the detail on that?
On the salaries I'm talking about,
all of the car allowances would be paid to managers. So the category that you've mentioned, no, they would not be in receipt of car allowances. They may be in receipt of other allowances, but not cars.
Okay. And you had said that you were going to look at the situation on site. Will we have that now in October, say, for example?
On the site, Deputy?
In relation to the car allowances, you're going to look at that in RTE?
Will we have it by then? Well, I can certainly update you on where we are. We're doing a wider piece of work about grading across the organisation and about allowances because, as you know, we currently have 164 grades in the organisation and numerous allowances, and we need to simplify the organisation fairly. But we need to talk to the unions and management and staff about how we do that. So we can certainly update you. I'm not sure whether we'll have the final solution by that stage, but we'll certainly update you.
But I'm just in reference to, just in relation to the strategic plan coming October. And when that's, I mean, I think the public and ourselves as the Oireachtas will expect all of this, because it's all about transparency and above all else accountability. And if things are not tightened up and all of that is not rooted out, nobody's going to buy it. And I'm not being smart telling you that. I'm just telling you that is the fact.
I agree with you 100%.
If this waste and law unto themselves type of attitude.
I agree with you 100%. That's what I'm trying to do, Deputy.
Okay, thank you. Just in relation to the, as I said, their law unto themselves, I just want to bring up the Soho House Club. And we were distinctly told and blatantly misled by a board executive member who sat here at several of the committee hearings and told us that the rental of Soho Club was used for business meetings, because RTE, let me just see, telling us it was used for business meetings with clients because RTE no longer had offices in England, in London rather, and that was the very reason that it was being used for. But your documents show us that in December of 22 and April of 23 that there wasn't any meetings had taken place. So we can assume that the former commercial director and a colleague had used it for accommodation purposes and not for what they had blatantly misled the Oireachtas members and the public in. I mean, that in itself is quite shocking, that a person would blatantly deceive Oireachtas members and that they would find themselves on the executive board of an organisation that is in receipt of public funding and a public broadcasting organisation. That in itself is quite shocking that it was allowed get away, to do that. But the other thing is there were also members of the executive board here when that was said, and no one contradicted it. So what does that say about corporate governance, transparency?
I can't answer for the reason given. I would say that I find it shocking in the first place that we had that membership, to be honest with you. There was a period we didn't have London office. In fact, when I was here, I think, originally, but I don't see any reason to have membership of an expensive club like that in London, even if it was used for the occasional business meeting.
Which it wasn't.
Well, from what I've seen from the documents, no. But that was the first I knew of that. And I suspect the other members, this was something that was intended to meet, probably commercial clients in London, and it was used by the commercial director to stay there when she did have those meetings. But I've read the documents as well, so I can't explain why that. I wouldn't necessarily expect that the other members of the executive would know why that was used if they hadn't used it themselves.
Yeah, but you see, this was firstly, you haven't retained that? Have you cancelled that membership of Soho House?
We're not paying it, as far as I'm aware. No.
Sorry,
we're not paying it, as far as I'm aware. So I'm sure we're not. So,
it hasn't been retained. Has it been cancelled?
I don't know.
I'm sure finance would know.
Adrian, do you know?
I don't know the details.
I haven't seen it in the accounts, so we're paying it.
But someone in finance would know whether that membership was cancelled.
That invoice came in, we would know about it, and it hasn't come. You haven't seen the invoice, Mike?
No, I haven't.
No.
Who would know about whether or not that was cancelled?
We'll come back and confirm to you it's been cancelled. We're not paying it now, that's for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, we haven't paid any additional amounts to Soho
House. But the membership,
so there would be. The
membership would still cost, wouldn't it?
Well, we haven't renewed it, so no payments have been made out to Soho House since I've started.
Yeah. No, I know no new payments, but have you still got the membership? Or is it still retained,
or
is
I'll have to find
you don't know?
Yeah, I don't know what the time period it was paid for.
I suspect they do with these clubs. You pay an initial membership and then you pay an annual membership. Now we're not paying the annual membership. I don't know what's happened about the initial one, but you don't get any money back on it. So.
And I'm pointing all of those things out to you just to highlight the level that did not exist when it comes to corporate governance.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Deputy.
You have a hell of a job to root out
I have.
that, and
but I'll do
well in it.
I'll do it, though.
Yeah, good.